This week's scenario is Close Quarters. It consists of 2 flags. The friendly flag can be dominated for 1 CP. The enemy flag can be controlled for 1 CP or dominated for 2 CPs. Victory conditions consist of 5 control points or caster assassination.
Hello, this is Iron Lich W, and this week I decided to go with Iron Lich Asphyxious over my Morton Neighbor list. One of the reasons why I decided to go this route was because I expected my opponent to drop the Mammoth, and with every Mammoth comes with Extoller, which will again around stealth, granted by Morton Neighbor's tier list. I also want to mess around with Madelyn Corbeau, turning Asphyxious into a melee threat with her Intrigue move.
Greetings everyone, this is Skox. I will be playing a Xerxis 2 Fury of Halaak list. I like this list a lot. It has a very nice ranged assassination, but also handles infantry spam really well with the Mammoth and the 2 Sentinels with the Raider or Snipe. I have the Nihilators for a speed bump. I have a min unit of Beast Handlers, an Extoller Soulward, and a Willbreaker. On the roll and chose to go first, I had to start by pre-deploying my 2 huge bases. I make sure they're about 6 inches apart so my caster can cast Snipe on the Mammoth as needed turn 1. One of the things that's really important when you're playing a list, especially one with multiple huge bases, is that you check all the terrain before the game starts to make sure it adheres to the 5 inches between restricted terrain rule. Otherwise, you can end up mid-game realizing that you are unable to get your models where they need to go. The reason I make sure I go first with this list pretty much every chance I get is that because the Nihilators are speed 6, running they're only able to get about an inch in front of my beast line. However, by going first, they're able to jam in the middle of the table and not right in front of my own line. This allows me a lot more freedom and buffering between my beasts and the opponent, and more freedom of movement for later turns. My bonded beast in this list is the Cyclops Raider, and that allows me to cast Snipe once per turn for free. I also deploy my support models in the middle, the Extoller in a place where you can give out Eye of Sight and collect souls from the Nihilators, and the Willbreaker for puppet strings and ancillary attack. I spread my beast handlers out throughout the deployment zone.
For deployment of the Cryx army, I started by putting Asphyxious in the middle, along with positioning the both arc nodes near the middle so I can kind of increase his threat projection. Since the Bloodgorgers are the slowest unit, I decided to put them directly in the middle. That way, when the faster units flank the sides, they'll roughly be able to have range on the rest of my opponent's army. My plan is to keep Bloodgorgers in the middle, and hopefully Gerlak will get off a good spree on my opponent's Nihilators. Then I'll put the Satyxis Blood Witches on the far left flank, using their superior speed to present a new threat option for my opponent once they get done with their mini feat. One thing that I'm not too sure of is I've never gone against the new heavy bugs for Skorne. I'm not even sure how to pronounce them, but I know they got poison, which is going to give them additional damage die, so I got to take their threat into range. I put the Bane Riders on the far right flank since they'll be able to... I want them to go after the Mammoth most of all. And they gotta be sure not to clump them together so that if the Mammoth shoots them, there'll be some surviving to attack him back.
Advanced deployment, I just had my 2 Aradus Sentinels. It's really nice that they have advanced deployment because they're only speed 3, and so that equates to a full turn of running. It's also important to be able to take into consideration where you want them to be so they don't get in the way of your huge bases as you move the first turn. So the main goal of this army in turn 1 is just to get in good position for turn 2. Because I have Snipe and able to make the Artist Bugs range 14 with 5 inches of advance, they're able to threat 19 inches on any given turn, so only the first turn do I really need to run or move up as much as possible. My caster goes and I cast Mobility, and then for my battle group, and then Ignite on the Nihilators. I really like Nihilators with Ignite. POW 14 Nihilators with Berserk really can mow through almost any regular 1 wound infantry without much trouble. I also cast Snipe on the Sentinel on the right just to have it on the off chance that I might need it. Then I go with the Nihilators. I run because I need to get as far forward as possible so that they can begin to jam next turn. This also allows them to get around to get in place before I move all my huge bases, and they don't get trapped in the back. I've had a problem with this list before where I end up with models unable to move and advance forward because they can't get around my beasts. I apologize for all the bumping. This particular table doesn't have any traction, so the models slide really, really easily. Next, I go with the Aradus Sentinel on the right. I go ahead and try to take a free shot at Saxon because deviating AoEs, why not? I am, of course, short, even though I walked 5 inches. However, I believe I deviate and land on him. Let's see. Yep, I was able to deviate and land on Saxon, and since it's a poison AoE, I get an additional die, and then I'm boosted to remove Saxon and take away Pathfinder. It's not overly important in this particular list, just because there's nothing he needs Pathfinder for on that side of the table. However, it's a good habit to get into to take those free shots, especially because I have such long range on my AoEs, and the poison really allows you to wipe out almost anything living turn 1 if you really need to. If it has advanced deploy anyway. So I just run the second bug, and the idea that I'll be in a better position for next turn. The rest of the army just runs. I could have tried to assault with the Mammoth. It does have assault, and it's speed 6 with mobility, so being able to go 9 and then shoot 14 is pretty impressive, actually. But not really likely to do a lot first turn if they don't have advanced deploy. It is a great tactic, however, to use against armies that are heavy advanced deploy like Ret, especially ones with low armor and stealth anyway. I'm just making sure that I count up all my fury and that I don't need to rile for anything before I do that run. I'm also trying to spread out my beast handlers as much as possible so that they can get to the Aradus Sentinels next turn if I need them to.
For Cryx turn 1, alright, I lost Saxon Orrik to a unlucky deviation on my behalf. I guess I will not be parking Asphyxious behind a linear obstacle since I don't have Pathfinder anymore. Anyhow, I decided to go ahead and try and think over where my opponent is moving his models, what he's trying to do in terms of threat projection, and I just go ahead and go with Snapjaw first. I pay 1 to trample, and then once Snapjaw gets his distance out into the field, I go ahead and submerge him so he doesn't get shot off the table. Then I activate the Machine Wraith, who's probably not going to be useful this game since my opponent is playing Hordes, and I guess Machine Wraith's job is going to be mainly to contest or control either of the flags. Well, control my opponent's or contest mine. So I just run them out there. Then the Bane Riders I activate, and I run them, and I try to space them out, because for me, the big thing is making sure that I do not clump them together, because I do not want the 4-inch AoEs from the Mammoth to take more than 1 off the table at a time. I go ahead and advance my Death Ripper, because he's got no immediate plan right now. He's more of a backup plan. Then I activate the Siren, I advance her, and power boost the Nightwretch, who then goes and runs. I run the Nightwretch to the hill, just so he'll be defense 17 if anyone decides to shoot at him, with the Bloodgorgers running and staying on the hill so they get the defensive bonus. But I'm also trying to keep them spread out some so the AoEs for my opponents doesn't kill more than 1 model, but given the fact that I'm running multiple infantry units, that does tend to be quite hard. Once Bloodgorgers are done, Gerlak runs a short distance to stay in the back, but get on the hill. And then the Blood Witches, I decide that this is going to be the best time to use their mini feat to make sure that they live. So they mini feat and they take the order to charge/run, with the Hag getting as far up the board as she can, and then running all the Blood Witches while keeping them spaced out in case my opponent decides to use that Extoller to give magical weapons to my opponent's far right bug. The whole game I'm trying to keep an eye on both the Extoller as well as the Willbreaker, just so they don't hurt me. Once they're done, I move the Skarlock, advance them, and cast Lightning Touch on the Bane Knight so that they have critical corrosion, or critical hit of corrosion. and +2 to damage rolls. Madelyn Corbeau, not entirely sure where she wants to go yet because I don't know where my opponent's going to send his Nihilators, and they're going to be the ones that triggers her intrigue move. And once Corbeau is done, I advance Asphyxious, but for the early turns I'm not entirely too sure where to put him. I don't want to drop Focus because I know my opponent could cast both Snipe, giving the Mammoth additional range, as well as the Willbreaker for Puppet Master and the Extoller for Eye of Sight, and they just turn the Mammoth into an extreme beast. And then I follow up by moving Wrong Eye up and casting Submerge, but trying to keep him away from the other model so my opponent doesn't target nearby model in order to kill Wrong Eye.
I spent a bunch of time trying to figure out what would be the best way to play this turn, and I really was convinced that what I wanted to do was send the Mammoth into melee with Snapjaw. And I'm thinking I have the range, but the Machine Wraith is a big problem. And while I try to figure out what to do about that, I am going with the Nihilators because they're in my way, basically. Their job is to be a speed bump, so I'm going to run charge them forward and throw them at my opponent as much as possible. As a player, I tend to often jam every chance I get because it really causes my opponent to deal with bad position questions. Is how to get around my reach tough infantry that's mat 7 base and PAL 12 and can do significant damage on free strikes. Also, I believe he mini-feeded with the Blood Witches this turn, so that while I can't do damage to them, I don't have to worry about them running and then being incorporeal and unable to be handled in the future. So I run to engage as much of his army as possible. However, because I'm still trying to figure out if I want to commit the Mammoth to a melee attack on Snapjaw, or maybe send him after the Bane Knight below me at the bottom of the screen, I don't put any Nihilators down there, and so I have no speed bump on the bottom half of the table. No jam units to block his ability to get to me if I don't commit. On the charge, I typically do no damage, as one would expect, because that's just the way it is. The next thing I do is I start trying to figure out how to deal with this Machine Wraith. I go and I activate the Cyclops Raider and give out Snipe to an Extoller. Then I go ahead and take a shot targeting a Bane or something that's completely out of range. The main idea here being, if I have a magic gun, I can give it Snipe and it can aim to remove the Machine Wraith and open up a landing pad for the Mammoth. The Mammoth has 9 inches of movement under mobility, and I think I can get there. This, however, was a mistake, as I needed to instead use the Extoller to put guidance on the Cyclops Raider, who can then boost a hit and boost damage as needed to ensure the removal of the Machine Wraith. I was able to hit the Machine Wraith with my Extoller, however, because it's not living, I'm only a PAL 6, and I have no souls since no one's died yet. I wasn't able to kill it. So the next thing is, now I know I can't get the Mammoth into melee with Snapjaw. There's no way I can land anywhere up there with the Mammoth. So now what do? I'm considering sending him after the Banes as with melee because he has Bulldoze. I think if I can get to the back Bane of the set of 3, I'm able to kill all 3 of them, and with just one Bane Cav and Snapjaw coming in on my caster, coming in on the Mammoth, I don't think he'll be able to kill me. His caster's completely behind the trees, and so while he'd be able to hit me with spells, he wouldn't actually be able to melee me, because he doesn't have any way to get Pathfinder after I remove Saxon, and he can't charge me through the trees as there are more than 3 inches of trees there. So I'm going to ride by attack with my caster. I cast Snipe on the Aradus Sentinel at the top. Then I move forward and cast Snipe on the Aradus Sentinel on the bottom. And then I retreat back to the wall, trying to make sure that I'm positioned in a place to be a threat, but not actually be in danger. The Willbreaker goes and gives me an ancillary attack on the Mammoth. I take the free shot at a Bane Knight Cav, I actually hit, and then kill him, doing full boxes. This is a sign that what I should have done is make my gunshots. However, As you can see, I am still trying to figure out where I want the Mammoth to go and how I want him to get him. How do I want to get him there? So before I fully commit to this plan, I am going with the Aradus Sentinels, and I'm going to go take shots, just deviating AoE 3 poison shots into his living infantry. The first one, I get a great deviation. I get the solo, I get a random Bloodgorger, and I get Corbeau, which with poison, getting an additional die for damage, really makes me think that I'm going to wipe them all out. However, as you can tell, he toughs the Bloodgorger I hit. I don't do enough to remove Gerlak, and I don't do enough to kill Corbeau. Then I cast Swarm, because most of his infantry is living, so if they come to engage my beasts, or they get too close to the Nihilators that are near my beasts, I'll have +2 defense. Next, I move the other Aradus Sentinel over, and I take a shot at the Skarlock to remove my opponent's ability to cast spells for free each turn. Anytime you can make him actually spend focus to do spells and to mess up his order of activation, then you're doing great. I actually have another wonderful deviation, and again I boost damage on the Skarlock. However, I only do 4 damage to it, leaving it on 1 box and not dead. Since that model's undead, I don't get the additional die because of living. Then I also cast Swarm once again, just to make it harder for him to kill me if he comes for my caster with something I don't know yet. Just, you know, it's a good habit to get into to protect yourself. Any chance you get where it doesn't matter, or casting it doesn't matter, in this case what I mean is I have the Beast Handlers who can go pull the Fury. It's always a good habit to give all your defensive buffs up as much as possible. So the Beast Handler is going to go. I'm going to advance forward. I'm going to pull the Fury from the Cyclops, and I'm going to pull the Fury from the other Aradus Sentinel. And then I'm going to enrage the Mammoth and send him in. This was... I'm just going to go ahead and say it. This was a mistake. This list is built on shooting and then finding the exact right tipping point before you commit to melee. However, I didn't get nearly as far forward as I intended. I intended to bulldoze that first Bay Knight Cav, and if I was able to bulldoze him, I would probably be able to be far enough forward so I could kill him and the other 2 near him. However, because I didn't have the distance, I was only able to get melee on 1.
For Cryx turn 2, I go ahead and upkeep Second Touch on the Bane Riders. I get 3 left, so I feel I'm doing reasonably well. And then before anyone else goes, I just go ahead and activate the Bane Riders without thinking. That way I make sure I get them out of the way first. So the Bane Riders do activate, and they take the order to charge the Mammoth, making sure I get into base-to-base contact on a straight line. That way I get my impact hits. With Sizing Touch, impact hits may do some damage. Then unfortunately I now realize that some of my dice rolls are off the screen, so that's one thing I know I want to make sure I correct for the next video, because I want you all to see what I'm rolling. And I am doing a minimal damage with impact attacks, but there are no criticals, so I do not cause corrosion on the Mammoth. Then when I go through all the charge attacks, I end up doing a lot more than I expected. Of course, then it's like a roller coaster. One Bane Knight will do Bane Rider, excuse me, will do a whole lot of damage, and the other one will do like 2 points. So my dice were spiking both directions in this particular game. Then once the Bane Riders are done, activate Siren, who does Power Booster on a Nightwretch. Then I activate Wrong Eye and advance him just into the forest a little bit after I check the control range, because I need to know how much to move him. But once I advance him into the forest, I go ahead and do Voodoo, taking out the Mammoth's Spirit. One reason I want to take out Mammoth's Spirit, because if I fail to kill him for some reason, at least he won't be able to force the Mammoth to both buy additional shots or boost either way. So then I activate Skarlock, and I have him move up, and he casts Parasite on the Mammoth to drop his armor by 3. So the whole plan is trying to get ready for Snapjaw to kill the Mammoth. So with the Mammoth having -3 to armor, and then I will put Scything Touch on Snapjaw, it should be like a swing of 5. Once the Skarlock's done, I go ahead and activate the Nightwretch. I use the point of focus that I power boosted with to turn his blast into an AoE. Because at this point I'm trying to free up Snapjaw, because he does have 1 Nihilator on him that's engaging him. So I miss my target basically completely and don't do a whole lot of damage. So place of focus there. Once the Nightwretch is done, I go ahead and, as I'm trying to think my turn through, I do go ahead and activate Madelyn Corbeau. And right now she's not in a great place. So I just go ahead and decide to move her, get her out of the way, and accidentally put her backwards. But then I activate Gatsby. At this point I feel I need to move home. I go ahead and move up as far as I can. I have 6 focus left. I check Killbox to see where I am. I'm good, but if I fail to kill the Mammoth, I want to make sure I'm not standing there. I go ahead and use Breath of Corruption and boost it at the Annihilator because I really need to free up Snapjaw. So I end up hitting the Annihilator. I kill 1 because it's AoE. Every model under the AoE takes about 12. And the second Annihilator passes a tough check. But my goal is met, and he's knocked down. So Snapjaw is unengaged. I put Scything Touch on Snapjaw. Then Asphyxious goes ahead and pops his feet. And I do a POW 5 to each of my opponent's living models. I end up killing 1, which is, I guess, better than what I expected given his feat. And then once that's done, I go ahead and just teleport Asphyxious to on the hill, trying to remember to keep Bloodgorgers in the way to block him on the hill. Then once Asphyxious is done, I activate Snapjaw, who charges the Mammoth. I was hoping I'd get a free charge, but the Mammoth is now war model, so I don't get a free charge. So I have to pay the 1 to charge it. And between Parasite and Scything Touch, Snapjaw's Bite is hitting at dice +2 in terms of damage. So between his initial attacks with his bite and his tail, Snapjaw does a significant amount of damage, and then all it takes is an additional bite attack to destroy the Mammoth. Then once the Mammoth is done, I'm like, I have 2 free focus still on Snapjaw, so hey, let's protect him from the bug shooting him. So I go ahead and pop Submerge on him. Once Snapjaw's done, I see the Machine Wraith. I have a clear line of sight to Extoller. I know what the Extoller can do, and I know that thing needs to go. So I go ahead and declare the charge on the Extoller by just waffle over it for a few more minutes, and then I see where he actually goes, and he fails his charge. So I'm a little upset that the Extoller lives for 1 more turn, but that is what it is. So then I activate the Blood Witches, who are fresh off their mini feat, so I still have all of them, and give them the order to charge. My opponent's done an excellent job at placing his Annihilators, so I'm not able to get as much movement done as I want to on the Blood Witches. In fact, I'm only able to get on a few Annihilators, and the rest kind of have to run to get in position for the next turn, trying not to clump up still, because my opponent still has 2 bugs with 3-inch AoE poison ready. And I also want to keep the Blood Hag protected since she takes away my opponent's tough while in her command range. So once I start rolling damage, On the first Annihilator I destroy, I do Death Strike. That way I have a shot at killing a second. And I am lucky enough to kill a second with Death Strike. And then the remaining Blood Wishes kill a third. But I like to do the Blood Mist. That way I get some cloud to protect some of the witches. And I also didn't want to take away from the targets that the Bloodgorgers would engage. So that's the end of the Blood Wishes turns. And then I move on to the Bloodgorgers who take the order to run/charge. Unfortunately, once again, my opponent has done an excellent job of using one unit of Annihilators to jam effectively 2 of my units. I'm only able to charge a few of the Bloodgorgers, and then I have to run the rest to try and get into position. And the whole time I'm doing this, I'm trying to make sure, like, not to put any more of my infantry models together. I only put enough together to get the gang bonus, and that's it. The rest is spread out so that the AoEs don't hurt them. And then the Bloodgorgers do manage to kill 2 of the Annihilators. However, using the overtake move granted by Slaughterborn, I try to move one of the Bloodgorgers an inch back so that he blocks Asphyxious, but he fails to make it to the hill, so my opponent can now see my caster.
Well, that was just about as painfully bad and hurtful as I could have imagined. I spent a lot of time at the start of this turn trying to decide if I can get to his caster with Xerxis. Xerxis 2 has a 14-inch threat range under mobility, and with my feet, I'm pretty sure I can kill him if I can get there. So I'm sitting here trying to guesstimate, since I only have a 10-inch control area without my feet, I can't actually measure the full distance until I commit to it. So I'm trying really hard right now to decide if I should feet or not. I feel like I'm on the back foot because I just gave away the Mammoth for a single calf model, and I really feel like Xerxis needs to get involved in the fight. I do notice that he maxed out Snapjaw, which means Wrong Eye is really easy to kill if I just hit him, because he didn't submerge either. So all I need to do is advance, get up there, shoot him with one of my Sentinels. So I'm trying to decide if I have the 15-inch range, or the 14-inch range that I need with my caster to get to his caster. Because then, worst case scenario, I can use the bugs and the Annihilators and clean out the jam, clean out the Bloodgorgers, so that I won't have to deal with them, making a tough check and causing me to fail my charge. I only have to remove 2, maybe 3, to get in there and then get into his caster. However, I eventually decide to upkeep Ignite, and I decide that I believe his caster is actually about 15 inches away, which is really depressing. That would have been great. So the first thing I do after that is I go with Annihilators, because I overcommitted last turn with my jam a little bit. Instead of sending them in a couple of solid waves, I sent too many in at once. So these guys are going to run charge and just do as much as I can to his massed infantry wall that I'm still got to deal with, that I have to find an answer for with my quickly dwindling model count. Yes, the current beasts will handle it just fine. I just need to keep it under control and keep it into a reasonable level. The guy who was knocked down, he just advances because you can't make attacks, and then he makes a tough check on the second one. This one, however, needing 6 to hit, goes on a rampage and murders like 4, I think, or 3 of the Blood Witches. The Blood Hag is still a serious problem for me because she takes away my tough, and I should make a point of trying to kill her if I can. But amazingly, the Machine Wraith is still causing me huge problems because he has a magic weapon. Because he has a weapon, he's actually able to make free strikes. So if I were to attempt to move through him, he could free strike me, and then I would teleport back to the place right in front of him, thus ending any movement chances I have. So what I've decided to try and do is get my caster over to the cav and kill 2 or 3 of them, because that's really the hard-hitting stuff in this infantry and in this army. And then use the Aradus Sentinels to shoot out Wrong Eye. And I have to do that all before I go with my caster, because that Aradus Sentinel to the bottom side of the screen is actually in my caster's way from where I want to go. So I go with the Extoller and I give guidance to the Cyclops Raider. Cyclops Raider then goes, and before I move, I decide to spend 2 to cast Snipe. However, I made a mistake and I cast it on the. I got so caught up in the plan, I cast it on the not the one I meant to cast it on. I meant to cast it on the one on the bottom side. Instead, I cast it on the top because the top one isn't in the way. It's the bottom one that has to go before my caster does. So he can't get the benefit of mobility, and he needed Snipe to be able to guarantee that he had range on Wrong Eye. So now I've got a problem. Do I go with my caster and try to get to his cav without the help? Like working around my beast? I don't think that's an option. So I'm just going to give puppet strings to the Aradus Sentinel that is going to take the shot and try and just advance this 3 inches and shoot 10 and see if I can get range. I really need to make this to have an easy removal of Snapjaw, because Snapjaw is very scary right now. He's actually by far the scariest thing on the table. So if I can remove him, especially if I can remove him basically for free, I would be okay. However, as you can see, I am slightly short. Again, that was because I didn't get that snipe. If I had gotten snipe with puppet strings and boosts, I would have no problem killing him. However, I hit 1 or 2 Bloodgorgers instead, and they tough. So now I'm super on tilt, right? I've given up the Mammoth, and I've failed to kill Wrong Eye and Snapjaw so far. However, I'm not done. I am not out of this yet. So I go ahead and commit my caster, without popping my feet, to wiping out a couple of Banes, because I go up to speed 9 with mobility, so I get 12 inches of charge, which actually is 2 inches longer than my control area. So again, he's an interesting caster just because everything you do, you have to kind of guess. Guess exactly where you're going to end up. You can't be 100% sure. Also, we decided to put a proxy down so that we would know both where I started now, but also how close I was on my guess of getting to his caster this turn. So I make the charge. I would move the full distance and get as close to his Bane as I can, and still, because of my huge base, able to keep the back Sentinel in my control area. I was only able to get in melee with 1 Bane at the angle I took, which was another mistake. I needed to get rid of 2 at least. However, that's where I am, and I've got mobility up, and I'm camping on 2. Next, I go with the other Sentinel. This one does have snipe, doesn't have puppet strings. I go ahead and take a shot targeting his Wrong Eye again. I boost a hit and fail miserably. Again. Then when I deviated, it was at least decent, and I go back towards his army at least, and hit Skarlock and 1 Bloodgorger. So of course I boost on the Skarlock since he's got 1 box, take him out, and take out a Bloodgorger. I'm in trouble. Having not killed Wrong Eye is a massive problem for me. So to try and limit his ability to kill me this turn, I run with the Beast Handlers to try and block lanes and positions. I am way over on Fury, but I need something to stop him from getting to me, right? So I stick on my anatomical reach Beast Handlers up in the way and stop his infantry and hope I live.
Cryx turn 3. I go ahead and reave as much as I can from Snapjaw and take the frenzy check, and unfortunately he goes crazy, which is horrible for me because Xerxis is right at the tip of my grasp, and Snapjaw ends up eating one of my Bane Riders. So as I survey the field and clean up all the effects, I am looking at what possibilities I do have left. Because Snapjaw went crazy, I really no longer have an adequate chance of trying to do an assassination on Xerxis, especially since my opponent has sacrificed his Paingivers to give himself somewhat of a screen. I do get a free intrigue move with Madelyn Corbeau, and so I spent a few minutes trying to figure out who's the best model to move. And because my opponent still has a few surviving Annihilators who are still causing issues with my Bloodgorgers and Witches, I end up moving just a regular Bloodgorger Grunt. Not entirely sure what to do. I do just decide to get the easy things out of the way, and I activate the Bane Rider, the last remaining Bane Rider, and he charges Xerxis. Ghostly prevents my opponent from making a free strike on him. He misses with an impacted hit because I forgot to curse, which seems to happen to me frequently with Bane Riders. I forget the curse on the very first attack, but then I remember it for the rest of them. So he misses the impact hits, but he ends up doing 3 damage to Xerxis with his charge attack. And once the Bane Rider is done, I go ahead and move my Nightwretch and just lobs a shot at Xerxis. Not expecting it to really, because Xerxis and the Paingiver have the same defense, I just go after Xerxis instead. And the Nightwretch does surprisingly well as he goes ahead and does 3 more points of damage to Xerxis. Then I activate the Siren. I advance her. At this point I'm trying to clear up my Bloodgorgers, so I spray one of the Annihilators, and I end up hitting 2 Annihilators as well as one of my own Bloodgorgers. And because my Bloodgorgers are trolls, I hit them easily. I miss one of the Annihilators. I hit one, but he passes his tough check while I do not. So I lose a Bloodgorger out of that trade. And then I decide to activate a Death Ripper, whom I forgot was engaged by one of the Annihilators. I back him out because at this point he's just in the way. So he eats that free strike and parks himself on the hill trying to stay out of everyone else's way. My opponent does do enough damage to take out the Death Ripper's head, but that's not what he's there for, so he's still functional as far as I'm concerned. Then I activate Corbeau. I move her full 6. I guess I was hoping to get a Seduction off to get Annihilator out of the way, but I think I end up being way out of range for that. But that's okay. And then once Corbeau is done, I activate Slaughterborn, and here's where I'm going to get my killing start. And true to Gerlak Slaughterborn's name, he misses his very first attack. And suddenly I remember why he's not in a whole lot of my lists. Once Slaughterborn is done, I go ahead and switch to the Blood Witches. At this point, I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to free up the Bloodgorgers. I need to kill a couple more of the Annihilators. I think there's only 3 left at this point, or 4. And they're in position to where they can try and score. So I end up go ahead and charging, but I realize basically I'm not going to be able to score with this unit because the last few are going to be outside the 4 inches rule, so I won't be able to control my opponent's flag. So I end up trying to run the rest of them, spread them out so that they don't get caught by AoEs, and then kind of show my opponent where my path is, make sure that they're not taking free strikes while they're running by Annihilator. And they do end up killing 2 of the Annihilators. But because not all of them are within 4 inches of the flag, I'm not able to score a control point. So then once Blood Witches are done, I activate Asphyxious, who casts Scything Touch on the Bloodgorgers, and then just moves to make sure that he's outside of the 14-inch threat range presented by Xerxis. And then I activate the Bloodgorgers. I'm trying to figure out how to get charges off the Bloodgorgers, but I realized that because a lot of them are engaged by the Paingivers, if I take free strikes, anatomical precision will just decimate my Bloodgorgers. So I again plan to go ahead and stall my advance. I run 1 Bloodgorger in, trying to engage both my opponent's heavy bugs, just to make him sacrifice one's action to get rid of the Bloodgorger. And then I charge in Bloodgorgers on one of the last 2 remaining Annihilators. just to get the gang bonus. So I'm able to go ahead and get range on all of them except for one Annihilator that's knocked down and has corrosion. I figure I can get rid of the rest of the Annihilators this turn thus far, and then completely opening up the board for me. One Far Bloodgorger that attacks a Paingiver actually hits him without gang and misses the second one. And then the Bloodgorgers kill one of the last few Annihilators, and then this time I successfully do my overtake move to get back on the hill to block line of sight to Asphyxious.
I got a little lucky with Wrong Eye's Frenzy. That eliminated him for last turn, at least as a threat. Now I've got massive Fury problems to deal with. I'm only able to pull in 3. So my front Sentinel frenzies and kills a Bloodgorger. The Cyclops Raider frenzies goes after the Willbreaker and hits him. However, he fails to kill him on amazingly good dice rolls. The same dice rolls I'd had all game. If they're going to go below 4 now, they might as well go below 4 all the time. But now I'm in trouble. I have to figure out how to pull this back. Because I spent so much time thinking about and talking about my threat ranges last turn, my opponent is now keenly aware that I have a 14-inch threat range, and he's making sure he stays out of it. And with his sitting on full camp and being undead, I don't feel I have a lot of options to kill him with my beasts because they're only POW 14 melee. So my only hope is to kind of attrition him. I'm going to wipe out as much of his infantry as I can this turn, and hopefully wipe out Snapjaw with my caster. If I can kill Snapjaw and 2/3 of his remaining infantry with just, or at least the Bloodgorgers, then I should be okay. That's my hope. And then, start playing the scenario, and also I will still have my feet, so I can just keep it there for any time he gets remotely close, fully commit on going in on something. That's my plan. So I move the other Sentinel over, closer to the rest of his army, but also to contest that flag, and I'll throw another AoE at his living Bloodgorgers. I hit 3 or 4 of them, force a couple tough checks, and camp out. Now I'm going to go with my caster, and my plan is to just wipe out that last Bane Knight Cav real quick with 1 attack, and then do as much damage as possible into Snapjaw. So I advance, and I make my first reach attack, and my second reach attack, and I buy another reach attack, and I buy another reach attack, and I buy another reach attack before I finally kill that one Bane Knight Cav.
Cryx turn 4. My opponent has committed his Warlock, and now I realize it's my time to strike. So I advance Asphyxious with Madelyn Corbeau's Intrigue move, and I do upkeep Scything Touch, because at this point I intend to get a couple of quick attacks on my opponent's Warlock with the Bloodgorgers. So I activate the Nightwretch first, I have him advance, and he does a bash attack on one of the Paingivers. Don't expect much, but he unfortunately, or luckily hits and manages to kill with his POW 7. And then I activate the Siren, who moves back and sprays the last remaining Annihilator, who survives corrosion, and manages to kill him, effectively getting rid of the whole unit. Then once the Siren is done, I activate the Bloodgorgers, and at this point I realize that none of them are going to get to Xerxis, so I just charge a Paingiver that's in the way, and the second one, whom I forgot to field promote earlier, he charges one of the bugs. So the first Bloodgorger kills the last remaining Annihilator and does his overtake move to get out of Gerlak's way, and the second Bloodgorger does some damage to the bug that he charges, but the key for me, the key is that he's not in the way. He's doing some damage, but he's not getting in my way. And after Bloodgorgers are done, I go ahead and activate Gerlak and give him a chance to redeem himself after missing a mere low average defense Annihilator, and he charges Xerxis. Because Xerxis is a living model, and Gerlak has good bloodthirst, his movement on the charge is effectively 10, and then he's got reach. So he charges Xerxis, he hits Xerxis, and then he also has Finisher, which gives him an additional damage die on models that have already been wounded. and he does 6 damage to Xerxis, which I can't complain about, but he's not redeemed yet. Then I activate Asphyxious and I have him charge Xerxis. So he's got 6 focus because he upped his Lightning Touch, which I probably didn't need to. Hindsight, I boost a hit, I hit the charge attack, and I end up causing Xerxis to use one of his 2 transfers. So at this point, I'm still kind of waffling, because I know I need to keep 2 focus to cast Lightning Touch, either on Asphyxious or on Snapjaw. So I end up casting on Asphyxious, because I think Asphyxious can do it with his 3 remaining focus. And then I go ahead and buy 3 more attacks. I end up doing additional damage to Xerxis and causing him to use his last transfer, but Asphyxious can't kill Xerxis himself. Leaves him sitting on 2. So thankfully, I managed to get Snapjaw back. And Snapjaw, who was MVP and was able to take out the Mammoth, goes ahead, activates, moves in, and bites Xerxis and kills him. So Snapjaw definitely got MVP of this game. My opponent, he did a phenomenal job and had a great battle plan. I look forward to the next time I get to play him.
Well, that was a game. I had a ton of fun playing it. My opponent was great, and even though the game didn't go my way, it was still a lot of fun. A couple things I might have done differently or been able to do to pull that game back. The Aradus Sentinels are only POW 14s, but if I whip them and enrage on it, I think they get up to POW 18, and then they go decent damage. So that last turn, if I had focused on clearing a path and pulled from the foremost Aradus Sentinel, I might have been able to have him make it all the way to the caster and potentially kill him. Another thing would be hold back and play the list the way it was designed to play, take advantage of my overwhelming shooting and make him come to me, and then when I really commit all in. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching, and look out for some more videos.